This is the Great Wall of China today, lush, green, and surrounded by thriving vegetation. But take a look at this photo from the 19th century, the exact same section at Badaling was bleak and barren. Here's the Ming Shaoling Mausoleum in Nanjing as it appears now, with tree-lined paths on both sides of the Spirit Way. Compare that with the late Qing dynasty image of the same site, bare, desolate, the road stretching into the distance with no greenery in sight. Many people assumed that while ancient civilizations lacked modern technology, they lived in pristine environments, lush forests, clean rivers, and a harmonious relationship with nature. But in reality, things may have been the exact opposite. Ancient ecological crises were often more severe than today's. Kind of different from what you thought ancient times looked like, right? Let's look at a few more old photos to illustrate this point. Here's the outskirts of Xi'an at the end of the Qing dynasty, just a few scattered trees. Even scenic Guilin, known today for its breathtaking mountains and rivers, looked rather barren back then. If you traveled back in time, you'd not only give up modern technology, but also struggle to find a forest. Nature wasn't as abundant as we often think, so where did all the trees go? They were used. Forests weren't just part of the ecosystem, they were the most essential resource. Ancient people depended on wood far more than we do today. We have gas, diesel, electricity, and synthetic materials. Even coal was a luxury in the past due to limited mining tech. For ordinary households, firewood was the only source of heat and cooking fuel. That meant cutting down trees. And without modern materials like stainless steel or plastic, wood was used for everything: stools, buckets, carts, boats, homes. As populations grew and economies developed, so did the demand for wood, and forests paid the price. Take the Tang dynasty capital of Chang'an, for example. It consumed over 400,000 tons of wood every year. Wood used for building homes and palaces was practically impossible to count. Although the city was near the forest-rich Qinling Mountains, even those resources couldn't keep up. The poet Lu Zongyuan described the devastation vividly: thousands of towering trees felled, saplings destroyed before they could mature, and mountains left bare. Later, when the Qinling Mountains had been almost completely stripped of large trees, builders had to go farther afield. Records show they began sourcing timber from far-off places like Shaanxi, 545 kilometers away, and Inner Mongolia, 670 kilometers away. Beijing tells a similar story. The Yuan dynasty rulers built a massive capital there, employing over 1 million laborers for more than a decade. Most of the wood came from the nearby western hills. To construct just one temple, Miaoying Temple, the government sent 4,000 soldiers to chop down 58,600 trees. That's just for one project. There were over 200 temples in the city, plus mansions, palaces, and government buildings. To transport all this timber efficiently, the Yuan even dug canals and floated logs downstream. Under the Ming and Qing dynasties, Beijing expanded further, and so did deforestation. By the late Qing era, there were over 100,000 Sihiyuan courtyard homes in the city, which required around 24 million mature trees. Eventually, the western hills had only a few hundred hectares of forest left out of 10,000 hectares. Beijing's forest coverage dropped to just 1.3%. That's why old photos show it looking so barren. And this wasn't limited to big cities. In rural areas, deforestation was just as severe. Farmers cleared forests to create farmland. The Lus Plateau is a textbook case. During the Western Zhou dynasty, this region had a forest coverage rate of 53%. But by the Tang dynasty, it had dropped to 33%. During the Ming, it fell further to about 15%. By the late Qing, due to war and migration, nearly all remaining original forests were gone. This once forested plateau became a dry, dusty landscape. There's even a tragic irony in history. Since forests were valuable, destroying them became a wartime strategy. Take the Pearl River Delta, once home to dense forests of water pine, now virtually extinct. Research by the Chinese Academy of Sciences shows many of these trees were burned about 2,100 years ago, during the Qin and Han invasions of the south. Destroying forests was a deliberate tactic, cutting enemy resources, cover, and building materials. In the Ming dynasty, the military routinely practiced defensive burning, setting fire to forests and grasslands beyond the Great Wall to stop nomadic invasions. No forest, no cover, no food for horses, no materials for siege engines. In summary, ancient urban development required logging. Agricultural expansion required logging. Wars involved not just battles, but ecological destruction. And the cost was millions of trees lost across China. China's forest coverage steadily declined throughout history, leading to increasing environmental disasters. Once Beijing lost its forests, it could no longer regulate rainfall. Floods struck nearby rivers repeatedly. During the Qing dynasty's 268-year rule, floods occurred in 129 of those years, almost every other year. The Lus Plateau suffered even more. Without vegetation, erosion worsened, and the Yellow River became a national crisis. In the Tang and Song dynasties, the Yellow River flooded 56 times. That number rose to 137 during the Ming and Qing. And this wasn't just a Chinese problem. Globally, early civilizations also relied heavily on wood. 2,000 years ago, 80% of Europe was forest. By the 18th century, only 10% remained. Over the past 5,000 years, Earth has lost 1.8 billion hectares of forest, an average net loss of 360,000 hectares per year. We often assume modern technology ruined the environment. But when it comes to forests, the truth is the opposite. The Industrial Revolution gave us new fuels and materials. We no longer had to cut trees for everything. Fertilizers, greenhouses, and high-yield crops helped us feed more people without expanding farmland. That's when humanity could finally afford to care about the environment. Since the 20th century, Europe has reforested through planting and logging restrictions. Today its forest coverage exceeds 34%. China followed a similar path. After 1949, soldiers, students, and ordinary citizens helped turn the barren Western Hills into a national forest park. Generations of work turned the Lus Plateau green again. 63% of it is now vegetated. China's forest coverage rose from 8.6% in 1949 to 25% today. It has 92.4 million hectares of planted forest, more than any other country. But some regions are still in trouble. From 1990 to 2020, South America lost 129 million hectares of forest. About 50% of that was for cattle ranching, 15 to 20% for soy farming. As the industry stabilized, annual forest loss fell, from 5.1 million hectares in 1990 to 2.6 million in 2020. Africa, however, continues to suffer. From 1990 to 2020, the continent lost 106 million hectares of forest. And the rate is rising. Currently, 3.9 million hectares vanish each year. According to the UN FAO, 80% of those trees are used as firewood. Reforesting such areas can take decades. Ancient people understood that deforestation led to disaster. So do modern Africans. But when survival is at stake, long-term thinking takes a back seat. As we said before, people first need food, shelter, and warmth, then they can think about the environment. That's where science and innovation come in. In the end, Earth is our only home. Protecting it is our shared responsibility. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. See you next time.